Although it's been years since our paths have crossed, I still hold the memory of a family, a happy family dedicated to each other.
As teachers, we know that a child's first teachers are his parents, and his home is the first sanctuary. And the Soloducha boys were confident and always smiling. They really know who they are and what they're here for.
The traveling of those two young men, they were well known and famous at St. Thomas as the Soloducha brothers. They would bounce down the hall with a Marine-style haircut.
My first memory of Andy was Mrs. Savio's class. Andy always had his head shaved, so we were always like, oh my gosh. He'd be like, yeah, check out my new haircut.
The first experience I ever had with a 5-year-old with a mohawk. And let me tell you, he rocked the mohawk.
Those two boys, clean-cut, beautiful, well-cared for young men bouncing down the hall. Here come the Soloducha brothers, we'd all say.
In aftercare, there's some kids that came up on the playground. They started kind of causing some trouble and throwing wood chips at my sisters and I. And then all of a sudden, the Soloducha brothers just came up to kind of protect us. And they told us that they were going to be our bodyguards that day. So I remember just thinking we were invincible with the Soloducha brothers on our side.
Alex, you were such an amazing older brother to Andy. I remember looking at you and trying to model myself after you for my younger brother. Even though I would watch him try you sometimes, and you never let it get to you.
Together, they were yes brothers and probably a little ornery along the way, and yet very, very connected as members of the family and prepared to stand for one another.
Kathy, I was your junior high English teacher at St. Elizabeth's, and Alex, I was your junior high English teacher at St. Thomas More. And of course, I taught your little brother, Andy. When I remember Andy, I always think about that big, beautiful smile that he had, his enormous exuberance and love of life.
I remember his unquenchable spirit. He was so excited about life and everything he did.
I just remember him always spreading joy everywhere he went. And it seems that throughout his life, that's kind of his motto, that he continued to provide for people.
A couple months ago, a guy walks up to me and he handed me his business card, and I looked down and it read Andy Soloducha, and I looked up and I said, oh my gosh. All of these years later, he still had that same smile.
He's clearly made an impact on his family and his friends, and I know you miss him dearly.
Andy's a kid that I will always remember and have really fond memories of. He was a beautiful mixture of both goofy and kind.
I can remember Andy in 6th grade like it was yesterday. I haven't seen him or heard from him in 20 years, and yet I can remember him just so vividly. He was so fun, so full of life, joy, so much character.
Everybody knows this man. He was 100 miles an hour. When he was having a good time, it was like the greatest time. Everyone got to have a good time that was hanging around.
When I think of Andy, every time the first thing that comes to my mind is laughing.
I just remember such a genuine, infectious energy and laugh that he always carried around.
I'm already cracking a smile thinking about everything. When I look back on it, I don't think there was anyone who could make me laugh the way Andy could make me laugh.
Whether it was, to his own detriment or if he was going to get in trouble, he didn't care.
He made grade school classes way more fun and funny than they should have been.
And that was just what Andy did. Andy was always trying to have fun, always trying to make people laugh.
Sure, there may have been a few more disruptions than the teacher would have preferred, but I can't imagine it any other way.
I remember in 7th grade, we were in Mrs. Butler's class, and Josh Belzer had gotten a remote-controlled watch that was hooked up to the TV that would get rolled in and out of class. Miss Butler turns it on and goes sits down, and Josh immediately shuts the TV off. So Miss Butler gets up again to turn it back on and fidget with it, and then sits down again, and Josh shuts it off immediately again. And this, goes on and on for 15 minutes or so. But at that point, I look over and just see Andy with his face down on his desk, just heaving up and down from laughing so hard and trying to hold it in. Man, it's just sort of the perfect moment that I think I'm always going to hold on to of Andy, and just sort of the joy he had in a moment.
He just had such a big personality, and whether it was appropriate time or not, always wanting to make somebody smile.
And also with him, nothing was boring. You could be watching paint dry and he would find a way to turn it into a game. Teachers might have been a little bit unwittingly involved in some of these games, but that just kind of happens some of the time.
I remember in 3rd grade, Mrs. Ramo's class, or as Andy has renamed her, was Mrs. Rambo. She had the brass knuckles on her desk.
A lot of the boys could not behave, and so Mrs. Ramo put like a row of seats and desks and called it Babyland.
There were quite a few people in Babyland. Say Jake Gerken, absolutely. Sam Prickleton, Joe Hopfinger, 100%. Dusty Coons, 100%. But number one, always, forever stuck in Babyland, was Andy. And my ass never was there. I was too busy kissing ass.
Even under that comedic exterior, he was just a really kind of a big softie. He always cared so much about others and their feelings. He was a really good hugger. I do remember that.
Andy was one of the most authentic people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. It didn't matter who you were with or where you were always going to get 100% Andy. And people from all walks of life loved him for that.
I hadn't seen Andy in years, and then I actually ran into him a few months ago. He just seemed so confident and cool, and I just thought that was really great that he got to that place. So many people never get to feeling so good.
Hi, it's Becca Tripp from the old Avila Drive days. I'm so sorry to hear about Andy.
I'm also here to say how sorry I am that we lost Andy so young.
I just want to say how lucky I feel to have been able to know him, and how lucky our class was to have him all growing up.
His enthusiastic and outgoing personality certainly added a great component to the fabric of the 2003 St. Thomas More community.
I still think about our class and how much fun we all had together, and Andy was just such a huge part of it, and I think about him all the time.
Just know that he is so loved and cherished and remembered by his STM family.
We are all really hoping that you're finding some sort of solace in knowing how many hearts Andy touched, how many lives he touched, what a wonderful man he grew up to be.
I wish you all warm thoughts and peace between your family.
You're all in my thoughts and prayers, and I wish you the best.
We wanted to offer our condolences. Andy was a one-of-a-kind classmate of ours at St. Thomas More, and we'll never forget him.
Over the years, I'd still stayed in contact with Andy. I'm going to miss the hell out of him.
Andy was a great guy, and I'll miss him a lot.
He was one of the most absolute, genuine, outstanding people I've ever met in my life. And I'm truly grateful for it.
Kathy, the loss of your husband was a terrible shock, and now you have lost your son Andy. It's so hard to comprehend.
Children, we're supposed to outlive our children, and the same with teachers.
And we all ask God why. There is no answer at this time.
Mama, please watch over me. I'm halfway home and I can see. I wear the scars of my mistakes and pray the Lord my soul to take.
I can't believe the news.
I'm sorry, this is really hard.
It's just an absolute shame that Andy was taken from us far too early.
And there's never going to be anybody like him.
But with our faith and the acceptance of God's will, we can go on.
And